Hello there, and welcome to another edition of the Manitowoc Monthly Spotlight. My name is Jason MacDonald, Technical Service Trainer here at Manitowoc Ice. Today we're going to be talking about how to install LuminIce and about some of the troubleshooting that you would see for that device. We're going to kick into our presentation right away here and get to talking about what this device will do for you and your ice machine. Keep in mind, just like when we were still doing this as a webcast or when we did our first monthly spotlight last month, there will be a quiz at the end of this seminar. There'll be a link that you can see on the screen, or there will be a QR code that you can scan with a mobile device. The quiz is both computer and mobile friendly. Keep in mind, there are going to be some questions that we ask of you, things like your name, who you work for. The big one is going to be your email address, so we have a way to contact you, give you a PDF version of our presentation today, and to allow you to get a certificate of participation for the seminar. So let's talk about the LuminIce 1 and 2. We're really going to cover the 2 mostly just because of the Indigo Next line haven't been out since 2018. All right, so big thing about the LuminIce 2, we updated the UV bulb. It's not backwards compatible, so there are different part numbers for each bulb, and you can tell by the color of the bulb when you're looking at it. The LuminIce 2 has a blue bulb, whereas the LuminIce has a white bulb. But we still have our status indicator lights that you'll see here. We'll talk about those a little bit more, but they're still available. And another one, and I know we're going to cover this more than one time, but there's a shelf life on these bulbs. If that thing's been sitting in a warehouse for 3 years or more, it's not going to be effective. So keep in mind that they have a shelf life, and the K00454 is the bulb that's used on the LuminIce 2. And again, they are not backwards compatible. Here's the big difference between those bulbs. Those fittings are a little bit different, and the color, as I indicated before. LuminIce 1 is a white bulb on each end, and the LuminIce 2 is going to be blue. But again, we're going to keep stressing this just so for those of you who are stocking parts for a while, you want to stick with your first in, first out kind of principle here, so that way you don't get an old bulb. Shelf life's 3 years. So what is the LuminIce really for? It's to help you fight airborne contaminants. It creates an active air feature, and it recirculates air inside the ice machine food zone, and it creates a UV light in there. This active air passes, and it basically separates that airborne growth and keeps it from sticking to your ice machine. That's what we're trying to fight here. So if it's waterborne, that's not what this is for. If it's airborne, that's where the LuminIce really is coming into effect here. So what's it doing? This deep UV light, it's going to split oxygen and water molecules into ozone. And those ions, they call it plasma. We're getting real deep into the bit here. But what we're really stressing is that this is helping you stop bacterial growth. Any sort of bacteria in the air can stick to anywhere cold, dark, and damp. If you've been to any of the field service seminars or to the factory school that Aaron and I teach, you'll notice that I've said a bunch of times that airborne contaminants, they love to go anywhere cold, dark, and damp. And sorry to tell you, that's the ice machine to a T. So this helps keep the machine a little bit cleaner, a little bit longer, helps you get in between those recommended cleanings properly, gets you closer to that 6-month minimum recommendation rather than having to pull this thing apart every single month. But you know what? Let's start talking about some of our installation on this. We're going to kick it out into the Tom Decker Memorial Training Center, where Aaron Harder is going to actually show you step by step how to put this thing into an ice machine. I believe we're doing it on a 22-inch Indigo Next module there. So over to you, Aaron.
Thank you, Jason. My name is Aaron. I'm a technical training specialist here with Manitowoc Ice. Today we're going to be talking about installing a LuminIce accessory device on an Indigo Next 22-inch machine. We make a couple different kits to fit the variety of the Indigo Next product line. We also offer this on Neo, and we do have a LuminIce available for the original Indigo machine, but it's slightly different. Today we're going to focus on Indigo Next. They're all fairly similar in how they operate, just a little differences when it comes to the particular machine that you're putting in. So be aware that not one kit is not one size fits all. You need to get the right kit based on the model of your machine. But like I said, today we're going to be doing an install on a 22-inch machine. We'll bring the camera over here so you can see what you'd expect to see in a kit. You can see we have some miscellaneous trim pieces that go by the evaporator. We have our LuminIce module right here, wiring harness, some hose bibs that would go into the bulkhead, and some miscellaneous fasteners, screws, bracket, tubing, etc. So the first thing I want to do is make sure that you got all the components that you would need to do the install properly. Once we've verified that, the first thing we're going to do is go over here to the ice machine, and we're going to pull off this trim cap, dust cover, whatever you wish to call it, and that's going to get access to these bulkhead fittings. So we're going to want to remove those. I'm just going to use a Phillips screwdriver to kind of push on them. I'll be careful. They are in there tight. That one fell on the floor. It's okay. We won't be reusing it. And this bottom one, try to get that out of there so it doesn't fall into the bottom of the evaporator. Okay. Once we have those installed, I am going to install this bushing. This just reduces the size of the upper bulkhead fitting. First, we're going to want to make sure we also disconnect power. We don't want to be working on a live machine, so I'm going to do that quickly. Now that we're sure that we don't have any power, no lights on the board, display's dead, we can safely assume that there's no power. I'm going to go back to this bushing. Now this is just a snap fit. We're just going to push it in there. It just reduces the size of this hole. We'll put these hose bibs in first. Taller one to the top there. Shorter one to the bottom. We're just going to push them in until they're secure. We don't need to force them. You can hear them snap there. They just need so they don't pop back out. Alright, so the first thing we're going to do after we get those hose bibs installed is put the bracket for the LuminIce device on itself. So to do that, we'll need 3 of these self-tapping screws. They're either Phillips head or 5/16. I'm going to use my nut driver over here to make things simpler. And the holes for this are here, here, and here on this particular machine. Now note this may be different depending on what model you're working on, but it's in a very similar type fashion. So I'm going to get this lined up. Just start putting these screws in. Like I said, they're self-tapping. Obviously, you want to be aware that you don't want to strip them out. You won't have a very solid platform then. And there's one that goes in this bulkhead fitting. Now that we have that bracket secured, we can go back and put our LuminIce module in place. Now, obviously these 2 holes you'll see line up with 2 holes here. One important thing to note is you want to make sure you have your connector and bulb towards the rear. If you put it this way, you're obviously not going to be able to get that bulb out. You'll have to unscrew this every time. So make sure that that bulb connector and that wiring harness Molex go towards the back. Now the screws, let's see if I can get this started while I get my nut driver going from the outside of the machine in. So there's 1. 2. Now this 3rd one is a little bit of a pain in the neck. I'm going to loosen up. Attempt to loosen up. Hold on. I'm going to get a nut driver here. The air pump. Now you may not have to do this on the machine you're working on. The 22 is pretty compact and small. We basically just got to get access so I can get this bottom screw into the LuminIce module. Let's see if I can swing that out of the way. I'll use my nut driver because I have limited clearance here. Come on. There we go. Again, we don't have to over tighten them. Just make sure that they're snug and secure. Now I'll swing this air pump back into place. Just so I don't forget about it. If you're anything like me, if you don't do it now, you'll forget to do it later. So tighten that screw back up, and then that'll be out of the way in the future. Alright, so like I said, you may or may not have to do that. It just depends on what machine you're working on. So we have our LuminIce module in place, securely mounted. We have our hose bibs in place. That's going to take air in and expel air out. So the next thing I want to do is hook up the hoses that would go from the bulkhead over to the module device. We have two lengths of hoses. The bottom connection has a hose barb on it, so we're just going to push that on and that'll keep it locked in place. We're going to bend it over and we're going to go to the gray colored, dark gray colored terminal. That's the air intake on the LuminIce device. And we want to make sure this wiring harness is out of the way here. Now the exhaust is going to go to the top port. So again, we'll push that over the barb and install that there. Now we should come with two snap clamps. We don't need to put them on the barb end because that's mechanically fastened with the barb itself. We are going to want to put these on the LuminIce end. So we're just going to get those lined up. Pinch those in place. Make sure that those are securely fastened, that these hoses aren't going to fall off with any kind of vibration or whatnot. That is pretty much the extent of the mechanical installation of the LuminIce device. We're going to want to also hook up our wiring harness. So we'll take a close look at this. We have one end that's going to connect to our board. You can see that there are 5 wires that connect to this Molex type connector. This is going to be our board connector. Come around here to the other end. Here we have one larger Molex and a smaller communication cable. This is what's going to be routed towards the LuminIce device. So again, depending on what machine you're working on, essentially what we want to do is route this away from any kind of heat source. Now there's no specific place to put it. We just want to make sure that we get this fastened so we're not rubbing against anything metallic. So I'm just going to fish it through. I'm going to get the LuminIce device end connected first. So you can see we want to hook up the large connector. It only goes on one way, so you don't really have to worry about orientation. Of course, we're going to want to lock that in place. Now the front smaller connector goes down to this beige colored connector on the LuminIce. Again, this only goes in one way too. There's a small locking tab that faces towards the front. Clip that in place. Make sure that everything's secured. We're going to be okay there. And now, like I said, we're going to try to route this in a way that we're not rubbing on anything. Now the kit does come with a small self-adhesive harness fastening device. We can stick that to wherever we need be. I'm not going to do that on this particular machine. This is just for training purposes. but that's what that device would be for. And I'd recommend you put it somewhere on the bulkhead, again, away from heat sources, what have you. You'll also notice that this harness is extremely long for this particular application. It's because we use this harness with the 48s. All of our different machines, of course, are different sizes, so you may need a longer harness. I'd recommend a zip tie. If anything, try to bundle it up and just put it into place. There is a protective loom over it, so hopefully vibration shouldn't affect it. We're just going to need to make sure that that's out of the way and secure. And we're going to want to connect this connector, 5-wire connector. Again, this only goes on one way, to the LuminIce port on our board. It's even labeled if you look closely, so you really can't mess it up. We're going to plug that in, and now we should have our electrical connections established. Last piece of the puzzle is going to be our replacement dust cover piece. If you'll notice, there is a notch cut out. That's for the discharge port on the LuminIce device. So of course we're going to want to line that up, locate the locking tabs, snap that in place. Now we have a nice clean look here at the top of the evaporator. The kit also comes with 2 stickers. I would recommend that you put this one on the front of the machine, just so that people are aware that it does have a LuminIce device installed. This one you could put on the inside door. That would be my recommendation. Just has the device manufacturer and some basic information. But this LuminIce sticker I would definitely put on the outside of the machine. Try to line that up, make that look good. Now that we're plugged in, upon startup, the control board should recognize that that device is installed. So I'm going to plug the machine in, and we're going to make sure that the LuminIce is communicating. So we'll wait for it to boot up, and we'll try to get a good shot of the screen here. Here you can see our status light. You have these 3 little diamond-shaped things with the S in the middle. Blue, S means that it's functioning. If you were to see a red S, either flashing or on steady, that would mean we would have a problem. Could be a bulb, could be the device itself, etc. But we see that we have the blue S illuminated. That means that the device is working and that we have communication established with our machine. One other thing we can check, if you put your finger over the discharge port on the top here, you should feel a slight breeze of air there. If we feel that, then we know that the device is also working. It's also important to note, this may be backwards depending on the camera angle, but if another secondary check that this device is working normally would be the LED right on the module itself. But as you can see, everything seems to be working normally. We would just need to, at this point, put our panels back on the machine, get it put back into service. We could set a reminder. If we wanted to, we could tell the customer that we need, this bulb needs to be changed at a 12-month interval. The machine will tell you that itself. Like I said, that red LED will come on, indicating that that bulb is bad, needs to be replaced. 12 months is the recommended interval. 3-year shelf life on the bulb itself, so be aware of that the replacement bulb that you get isn't already expired to begin with, because it's going to have a reduced life because it's been sitting on the shelf. There's a couple things that Jason will probably go over with you too when we go back to Jason. So there you have it in the nutshell. Quick rundown on how to install the LuminIce module. It's actually pretty simple. There's only a few pieces. The important things to note are to make sure that that wiring harness is routed correctly, and after you have the whole install finished, just make sure that we're getting communication with the board and that that device is actually working. With that, I'll go back to Jason, and he can take it from there.
Thank you so much, Aaron. So we're going to keep going on with the presentation here. Again, this is what it was doing. It's about saving money. One thing we didn't really talk too much about during the install, because we were really just showing you how that thing hooks into the machine, is about how you replace these bulbs. I think he did pull it out of there a little bit, but the big thing is you got to remember, hey, we got line voltage components here. Just like anything else, you're going to disconnect power to this ice machine, and you're going to at least get that top panel off of the machine. Probably going to be easier if you take the left panel off too, so that way you get access to this thing. And you're basically just going to push in and pull the bulb and expose it. And at that point, once you've got it, you're just going to basically pry it off there and put your new bulb into the bulb holder, and you're going to get going. Keep in mind that bulb is going to have a effective lifespan in a machine for 12 months. The lights on your indicator, both on the Easy Touch user interface display and on the module itself, will tell you if that bulb needs to be replaced. And we're going to talk about that here in a bit. Keep in mind on the old LuminIce 1, you could have set a reminder on the original Indigo, that machine that had the LCD display and touch pad, but without the touch screen. There was no indicator on that home screen. So you could go into the system and set a reminder that says, change bulb every 12 months, and then you'd get a little envelope on your screen. But this one on Indigo Next, you're actually going to get a indication on your home screen. So we talked about those status indicators. We're going to cover some of those now. What you see on here is the machine letting you know, hey, we're making ice, but also we have a LuminIce working. That blue circle there with the S says that the sanitation system is working and it's operating normal. That's a key one there. After a year of operation, you're going to get an automatic reminder, because if you've ever done an install on one of these machines before, you'll notice that when you go through, if you installed this yourself before doing the startup wizard, or if it came with the machine, which you'd see that with an X designator at the end of the model number saying that it was built in from the factory, it's going to check for any accessories that come up. So this reminder gets populated automatically without you having to go in there. If there is service needed, we're going to go from red to blue, red service. And if you press this indicator, it's going to give you a little more information. You're going to see, hey, normal operation, an incorrect bulb, you're going to have that red and blue sideways bit. Remember that we told you, hey, you cannot put a LuminIce 1 into a bulb into a LuminIce 2, and you cannot put a LuminIce 2 bulb into a LuminIce 1. So this will tell you that the bulb's incorrect. And then you got that hard bit there where it's telling you to replace your bulb. So what we're looking for here, said we were going to cover it, so we'll do so now. Again, you've got your replace bulb, which we've already covered, but if you're flashing red, that's telling you that something about this device, this module, needs service. And there's not much that you do to service these things. It's usually just bulb replacement and the like. But that's letting you know that something is going wrong here, that it's flashing at you, telling you, hey, something's wrong. Solid red, time for a new bulb. Flashing red, that's really trying to get your attention. And again, we're going to say it every single time. Every time it pops up on the screen, shelf life is 3 years on these things, so you may put a new bulb into a machine and still get that change bulb indicator. Well, at that point, you're going to want to look at what the manufacturer date code is on the bag or box that the bulb came in, so that way you verify that it's just not past its shelf life. So, a little bit of troubleshooting. This one's going to get wordy, but the bit here, it goes deeper. So flashing red service, we've got a couple of different bits of what it could be doing. There's a high current where the ballast is going to shut down anywhere above 2 amps, and it's going to attempt to restart 5 times before shutting down completely. And at that point, what you're going to see is that that service light flashing. Default code on this, it'll give you 3 flashes on that module, letting you know it's the high current shutdown. Low current, this is if we get below 500 milliamps, the ballast shuts down. Cycling power to that unit typically will reset your ballast, and you're going to get a single flash fault code on that unit. Medium current, this is anywhere above 1.25 amps, and it's just like on the high current, it's going to try to restart 5 times before completely shutting down. Key with this one is that it's going to have a 2 flash code. And then again, which we covered on previous screens, you got the red and blue light. That's telling you that there's no bulb in there or the incorrect bulb. So those are the real big ones that you're going to see. But there's one more thing we really want to cover about troubleshooting this bit. Because there is a ballast for the UV bulb, if they're cold, it may be more difficult to light this thing up. So what you're going to want to do is let this thing get to room temperature and see if there are any codes still in that system. You want to check your power supply here. These are universal voltage, whether it's for our 120 volt systems or our 208, 230 volt systems. So the primary voltage is going to be whatever's going to the voltage of the ice machine. But there's a secondary voltage bit, and hopefully my arrow actually shows up on the screen here. Normally I don't like doing that. But this here, spot 38 on your board, that is where the LuminIce module plugs into the control board for the low voltage. What you're going to need to do is unplug that from here and then counting left to right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You're going to go across terminal 2 and terminal 4. What you need to verify is if you've got your secondary voltage. So if you're somewhere between 12 and 14 volts DC and on the secondary, and you still have your primary voltage is in range, you're going to want to replace the power supply on a LuminIce 1 or the control board inside the LuminIce 2 if you're still getting any sort of malfunction on this bit. So big key there, again, component 38 on the wiring diagram, on the control board diagram, which you'll find in any Indigo Next technician's handbook. We have a legend there that'll tell you what each of these numbers mean. We're highlighting number 38. That's where the LuminIce low voltage circuit plugs into the control board. You're going to unplug that and verify, is the board putting out the voltage that it's supposed to? Board's working. At this point, we need to replace the power supply on LuminIce 1 or replace the internal control board on LuminIce 2. So I'd like to thank you for seeing Aaron do the install and listening to me talk about troubleshooting this LuminIce today. We want to highlight some upcoming spotlights. Next month, we're going to do a big to-do about our Ice Tech Fact series. Those are shorter videos than these spotlights or the previous webcasts that we used to do. So those are 5 minutes or less. That's a quick, to the point, hey, what's going on? And we're going to show you, hey, what do we have going on? How do you find it? What are easy ways? We'll show you how to find it from the website if you're used to going to manitowocice.com, or we'll show you how to find our playlists on our YouTube channel, because that's where these are stored. Then in November, we're going to go over NEO refrigeration system and diagnostics. So we're going to talk a little bit about how to diagnose expansion valves, leaking harvest valves, inefficient compressors, anything of the like. Just the refrigeration system and how it works on that machine. And then, even though we seem to cover this one every year, it's a big one. We get asked questions all the time. We're going to talk about the Indigo Next cleaning procedure in December. So show you a few tricks of the trade that you might not have seen before, some things that we like to go above and beyond what the procedure will say. You might need to check those things because you find that, hey, the cleaning didn't take care of it. So we're going to go over a lot of that in December. Keep in mind, future content, Aaron, Jared, and I, we come up with a lot of ideas, but we don't know if it's what you want to see. So this QR code here will take you to a form where you can tell us what kind of video content you'd like to see. Feel free to tell us whether it's a longer monthly spotlight like you're watching right now, or if it's just something, a short tech fact, hey, how do I do X? I don't need all of the ins and outs. I just want to diagnose a component. So I'm going to leave that up for a couple of seconds, give you a chance to snap that if you want to get access to that form. But again, at the end of this spotlight, you're going to see a link to a quiz. We are showing a little bit about the factory school. Shameless plug there, like we like to do. Keep in mind, training season is back in session. If you're looking for local training, please go to manitowocice.com, click on service, click on training, and then you want to click on level 2. You'll see a schedule where you can find what's going on in your local area for half-day and all-day schools. Or if you want to come to Manitowoc, Wisconsin, get your hands into that hands-on area and have a full week of training, lecture, and hands-on portion, you'd go to the level 3 training, and it'll show you some dates. We have put the rest of the season up, but here on the screen, we're only showing you what we're doing for 2023. But again, there will be a quiz here, and we're about to show you that link. But again, you got to click submit and you got to give us an email. If you click submit without the email, it'll score it, but we're going to have no way to contact you. So please insert an email at this and then click submit after you've answered all the questions, and we'll be able to contact you with your certificate and any prize that may come up. Speaking of the prize, we're still doing our grab bags. For every 25 submissions, we're going to pull one name out and send one of these prizes out. We got a hat, we got a bag, a little tape measure, got some lens cleaner, box cutter or envelope cutter kind of thing, and a sleeve with Band-Aids. Keep in mind, before, when we were still doing a webcast, we said within the first 2 hours. Now that this is a spotlight where there's no live attendees, it would be within the first month. So every 25 submissions, we are going to pull a name. So obviously for 52 and for 204 and so on. But here we are with the QR code and the link that you would need to get to that spotlight quiz. I'd like to thank you all for coming today. Aaron and I always appreciate putting these on and seeing what feedback we can find and getting information out to the field that we know is definitely necessary. So we're going to leave this up. Thank you for attending and have a wonderful day.